great. Some of them simply can't. And as great as Melvin is on the outside in that 3-4, he's also a small guy to be putting on the line at about 245 pounds. He's also don't have a lot of height, which you want your defensive lineman to have right around 6'4", sometimes longer if you can. And that's my only worry there is he's got the talent. That's not a question for me is would he convert and fit fine with New Orleans?
Yeah, I mean, it's a question. I think just kind of looking at Dennis Allen's track record in his past. He's had success with and has used players like that with a similar body type in his scheme with a similar skill set. So
yeah, and I'm not saying it's not doable.
I think it's something to look at.
Had you a better linebacking group behind him, I'd be more confident in a Melvin Ingram because you'd have linebackers behind him to make up for his size. But because we don't, that's why I kind of lean more towards the Mario Addison because he's got a good 25, 30 pounds on Ingram. And while he's not the speed threat that Ingram is, he's more reliable in I don't have to worry about him getting pushed completely off the edge by a 310-pound left tackle on a run play, kind of like how Junior Gillette was. Junior Gillette was that 3-4 outside linebacker mold where he's going to get you 10 sacks, but he's also going to get knocked out of every run play that he faces because he's having to go against an NFL lineman. So,
yeah, and to be fair, when I say Melvin Ingram, the silent thing to that I don't mention is. I'm also thinking you draft Zach Cunningham out of Vanderbilt in the first round if you grab him up because I think he's NFL ready now, which would then give you the ability to move Ellerbe over to strong side. You put Robinson back on weak side where he is a better player, and obviously you need to get some depth behind Ellerbe at the strong side. But of the games he does play, that gives you a very talented, very strong. Actually athletic for one's linebacking core, and your front four could actually be pretty terrifying.
Yeah, there's certainly a lot to try to figure out there. I like the name that you just threw out there in terms of draft. My only concern there is, once again, we're running into size problems because I think Mark Ingram weighs more than Zach Cunningham does. So, I mean, can he put on some weight? At the NFL level, you got to be big up because everybody's a grown man up here. I mean, who knows? It's a toss-up. I just got to find an edge there because once we seal that defensive line, that side, and get that, then you can work your way up. Work your way from the trenches up to where you need to be. Honestly, ever since Jarris Byrd got benched, we haven't really talked about it, but he's played pretty well. Serviceable. He's not Pro Bowl level, but he also doesn't have the Buffalo Bills defensive line in front of him either. But I think he's done pretty well. So if he stays at that same consistency and how Vaccaro has done, safety should be fine for a couple years. So then we're just having to look at a couple of other positions and work on that. And that's why I'm pretty optimistic going into next year. I still say that the team as it sits today, I feel bad for it because I'm a huge fan. If anybody sees the room I'm sitting in, they know I'm a Saints fan because if I'm not, I've wasted way too much money on a team I don't care about. But they're just not a good team this year. They're not ready. You know what I mean? Not many. I stayed to the very last second of the Saints game versus Lions when almost every of those 65,000 plus had left. That's how much of a fan I am. I not only paid good money to go see them destroy themselves, I stayed to the final second, then walked through the rain on Poydras Avenue to get back home because that's how much I love my team. So everybody hears me talking down about them, think I don't love them, and I'm like some secret Panthers fan is crazy.
Yeah, I mean, there are definitely some of those what we call Carolina Saints fans out there on Twitter, but I don't think you and I, either of us, fall into that category. Not one bit.
Well, man, because we're running a little late, go ahead and tell me what you think on Tampa. Give me a prediction, and I'll fill you in on what I thought after you say. Everybody else got a good chuckle out of it, but I think it's going to happen just because that's how the season's run so far. But go ahead and tell me what you think.
I think it's going to be 31-28 Saints. I'm not even remotely close to impressed by the Bucs secondary. I think their offensive line's been very hit or miss most of the season. I do think Mike Evans is going to help them put up some numbers, but I think the Saints have the ability to eliminate everything other than Mike Evans, which is a way to beat them. And I think the offensive line will have a much better game next week just because I believe they are and they should be embarrassed by their performance against Detroit. But, I said they were going to beat the Lions pretty handily, and I was wrong on that. So what do I know?
Yeah. Well, here's what I felt on it, and I think you'll get a chuckle as well. Just based on how this season has gone, has nothing to do with the matchups or quality of teams that we have left, but I really feel that the Saints are going to go into Tampa and win, partly because we seem to split the series every year, and we seem to win in Tampa and lose at home. And I think we'll be a surprise to beat Arizona, to even out at 500. Then we're going to come home to Tampa and get completely destroyed. And I'm talking 35 to 18 destroyed. I really feel that way, and we're going to end the season 7-9 because after that demoralizing loss, we're going to go to Atlanta and lose. So that's how I see the season ending. We're going to get back to 500. Every Saints fan is going to be like, "Oh my God, we're going to the Super Bowl. We're 7-7," and then we're going to get destroyed by Tampa at home and end the season. That's how I see things going because that's the trend of the year. Not because Drew is falling off, not because Ingram's hurt or the defense is hurt. That's just because that's how the season's gone. That's what I see happening. Us winning in Tampa to a similar score like you're saying. I had it more along the 25 to 22 range, a couple of field goals type of deal because it's outside and the Saints. And then we go to Arizona, win there for the first time in over a decade, then come home and get trounced. That's what I see happening.
Hard to argue with. I think that could definitely not just be possible, but be likely.
I know every Saints fan wants to hear that too.
Oh yeah, that's definitely what we want to hear. I had to have my brief alumnus moment. Can we quit the stupid stuff with the whole Brandon Cooks thing? Like, it's been blown so far out of proportion at this point. I know Nick's getting pissed at it. I've gotten pissed at it. Like, I get it. We loved Colston. He was the nice, quiet guy that never said anything. I promise you there were games where he didn't get the ball very much. And in the locker room and in the film room, it got brought up. If you don't have the competitiveness and pride to demand the ball and say, I want more, you don't belong at the NFL level, and you damn sure don't belong as a starter.
Well, here's because your best friend
didn't say it publicly until he was asked about it.
Yeah. Look, your best friend, Brian TNR, had a little rant earlier. I'll let you go back and listen to it. And I'm kind of in the middle here.
Oh, I will.
One, everybody knows I try to stay away from anything that isn't stats or football or film related simply because I don't know somebody like Cooks personally. I don't know his character to go and say, well, this guy is being, a bad teammate because of what he's saying. I will say this, though. The only issue that got brought up that I had a problem with is when all this started spilling through and Cooks has a comment like closed mouths don't get fed. To me, there's nothing wrong with voicing that type of opinion and having that competitive attitude like you're saying. Just keep it in-house, keep it in the dome. The moment you let it slip out, the moment you're giving these sound bites to reporters and even bloggers, that's where this stuff gets blown up because you've allowed it to get to that point. Maybe Brandon Cooks, because he is a young man. He's 23, if I remember right, maybe 24. He's young.
23.
Maybe he's a little prideful and he feels like he should be the number one guy. That's fine. Just keep it in the house, and if Marcus Colston's got to come give you advice for it and give you a little heads up, whatever has to work, let it work. Because in a Saints offense, which is closer to a West Coast than it is, just about anything else, a Michael Thomas is going to be your number one every game of the year because of his size and his ability in the middle of the field. So if he really does have that I need to be the number one mindset, he needs to go ahead and either one, fix that, or two, leave. Not that I don't like him. I love him. I think he's the next Antonio Brown because of the ceiling he has. He just has to improve a little bit gradually year by year. My only issue with this whole scenario is it got blown out of proportion because he let it. He should have just come out and squashed this whole thing and said, look, either one, it's none of your business, or two, that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about team football, and that stuff needs to stay in-house, and that's the only thing I have on that.
Yeah, and that part of it's fair, and I recognize the fact that, just if for no other reason I'm an Oregon State alumnus, I'm gonna be a little bit biased on it. I'm also from a similar area from the kid. I don't know him personally, but I know and have met people who have. So I'm a huge Brandon Cooks supporter. The closed mouths don't get fed comment. I didn't have a problem with the comment itself, but it definitely invited.
Look,
a lot of
like I said, it's not the comment that's getting me; it's how it was said and when it was said.
That was the thing. That part I totally get and I agree with. It was just that's bad timing. That's a shut up, my bad moment. Just from as far as media relations, understanding PR, how to keep things from becoming a headline standpoint. My opinion on the whole thing is I don't think Cooks was under necessarily saying I need to be the number one. It needs to be all about me, but more of I can do more and I can have a greater effect. And generally, when I've gotten the ball, when I've been given chances, I've produced. Give me that chance. Yeah. He hasn't had a problem. There hasn't been anything when Michael Thomas has had a big game. And also, Michael Thomas has put a lot on Twitter. Fans didn't blow up about that. He's made as many comments, about his performance and how he needs to get better. And
he's definitely not the quiet storm.
I want receivers who want the ball.
Hold on, Brian. I knew you were going to cut it, but hold on. Miss Judy's got a comment. Let me get Miss Judy in here before y'all go crazy on me.
Good Lord.
Miss Judy, go ahead.
Okay, I listened, to the first part, and I don't know is Brian still on here? Is he still here?
Yeah, he's still here.
I'm here.
Okay.
There's two of them.
Oh, the Brian TNR.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm here.
Okay. I agree, with what you were saying about Cooks earlier, in part, but I also agree with. See, I'm getting the name the guy who just came in. Who was the last guy that came in?
Well, we just call him Brian in California.
Yeah. What I took, and I don't know him. We don't talk. We're not friends, but from everything I've gathered about him in the past 2 years, is he is a selfless guy. He has a level head on his shoulder. I don't think he did say that he'd made that tweet about they say it's a business, so I'm gonna start treating it as a business. That's a vague kind of something. He didn't say anything bad about the team. He didn't say I want to be number one. He didn't say Mike Thomas isn't a good player and I'm better than him. I don't know what exactly that tweet meant, but then when he was asked about it is when he said closed mouths don't get fed. But he also said in that same interview or discussion, he said this is not coming from a selfish standpoint. Can we not take that as that he meant that?
No.
That it didn't come from a selfish standpoint? Should he have kept it in-house? Should he have made that vague kind of tweet? No. He shouldn't have probably done that. But I don't think that he's saying he wants to be the number one guy. I think he is a competitor and he wants the ball because he thinks he can make things happen, which he can. Like you were saying earlier, that he's the only guy that we have that can do what he does. Yeah. He's the only guy that fits that role. He wants the ball. I don't think it's a Terrell Owens kind of thing. I don't think it's I'm out. It's I'm more important than the team. He said he wanted to help the team. Mm-hmm. I just want to help my team. I just think it got kind of blown out of. I don't, like I said, I don't know him, but I just would like to believe that everything that I've seen up until this point about him is he's a team guy.
Well, I'm going to say something real quick because I know Brian TNR is chomping at the bit, and as long as both Bryans keep things civil, I'll let them go at it as much as they want because I assure you that we're going to enjoy it. But here's what I got to say, and this is to Brian in California's point, what he was saying. If it is and it does become an issue, and I know Brian TNR is going to say this, if it does become an issue where he is wanting to be more touches, more targets type of guy, it comes down to me, statistics. Statistically, this season in terms of targets to catch ratio, Brandon Cooks is catching about 66%, whereas Michael Thomas is 77.5%. from a logic number standpoint, you're going to target more the guy who fits your scheme, 1, and 2 is catching more reliably. And whether that be because, for example, in St. Louis, because the Rams decided to bracket cover